Hello and welcome to the Moon and Back. So a little bit about us, we wanted to create an interactive app for kids that are first learning about the solar system. To the Moon and Back was also tested by a wonderful human who works as an educator, and they were able to give us really great feedback on how we could make it more kid-friendly. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and go into our demo. We're going to start by refreshing our page so you can see our fun little animation. Now we're going to scroll through where you can see all of our different celestial body options that the user can go on a voyage to, also a randomly generated piece of space news. Now we're just going to scroll through so you can see that we have all of the planets as well as the sun and the moon as voyage options. Now we're going to scroll over, we're going to actually go to Jupiter. So the user is first prompted to answer how many Earth days they'd like to spend at their destination along with how many people they want to travel with. For each human that's going with them, a boarding pass is populated, and they can fill out each user's name, age, and weight. And the reason why we're grabbing this information is because once the user is at their destination, they can see really fun facts about how their age and weight have changed. So we're just going to finish filling this out, and now we're ready to go on our voyage. And here you can see that the user is traveling to Jupiter. And now we have arrived. And immediately you can see Jupiter along with some fun facts about how far away they are from Earth, along with how long it took them to travel there, gravity, and different day information. We also have a nice interactive and visual pleasing representation of how the user's age and weight has changed on Earth versus Jupiter. It's nice and easy to click through. And then we also have a variety of landmarks. Each landmark has their own handwritten description about what they are. In this case, Jupiter has multiple gorgeous moons. So we're just going to keep clicking through them so you can see all of the landmark options. And once the user has completed everything and they're done looking at Jupiter, they can click to go back to Earth, where the user will travel back to Earth and be greeted by a nice thank you page. And the user also has the option to go on more voyages. Here we're just going to do a quick demonstration of showing that our logo brings the user back to the homepage, as well as if you're interested in the news article, you can click to learn more, where you're brought to the actual site where the article lives. Thank you very much. That was our demo.
On the back-end side of things, our biggest win was picking up a new language, which also meant learning new application and testing frameworks to go with it. We ended up going with Python, which was mission critical in the end. Some of the data we were looking for lacked a good, easy-to-use, easy-to-access API, but we were able to instead access Python scientific libraries like the solarsystem.py library so that we didn't have to make a major pivot in order to hit our MVP. That said, we still had challenges in figuring out which frameworks to use. Flask was more customizable to our needs, but requires being built more or less from scratch, which necessitated growing pains, like a persistent circular import error that, in hindsight, should have not taken nearly so long to fix. We had to make similar decisions with our testing frameworks, whether to use unit test or PyTest. As I mentioned before, as well, some of this data wasn't something we could pull from an API. Interesting places is subjective, and so for landmarks, we had to do a lot of manual research and custom curation, picking and choosing what we were going to show and why.
On the front end, our wins included our CSS animations, which were super fun to make, and using React hooks and Chart.js, both of which were really exciting to learn. Adding a carousel to both the destination selection and the landmarks display was a big win for us. But most importantly, we did hit our MVP and we had a great team dynamic. We did have some challenges along the way, including a warning from a test that we could not figure out despite the test passing. We also had originally planned to implement D3 instead of Chart.js, but after working on it for 9 hours between the three of us, and with only a day to go on the project, we had to pivot to hit our MVP. We ran into some difficulty using CSS Grid and CSS animations, but feel we understand both much better now that we've worked through those initial struggles. We also ran into a conceptual gap understanding React hooks initially, and worked together to bridge the gap and understand lifecycle methods with hooks. A few of the technologies we used aren't playing nice with our deployed site right now, and especially not with cross-browser compatibility. Right now, our app is only fully functional in Chrome and is almost usable but sort of glitchy in other browsers. A small challenge we worked through was getting used to Travis CI and Netlify builds failing because of linter warnings. Our front-end tech stack was primarily React with hooks. We used Sassy CSS for our animations, Chart.js for our chart, and Slick Slider for our carousels. For testing, we used React Testing Library and Jest. And lastly, we used Travis and Netlify for our CI and CD respectively.
On the back end, we built our app with Python using Flask as our web framework. We used a Postgres database and SQL Alchemy as our ORM. To test our backend, we used the PyTest testing library and Travis CI to run our tests as part of our continuous integration pipeline. We deployed the backend application using Heroku as our cloud service provider. For future iterations, we would like to include more destinations within the solar system and allow users to visit multiple destinations on a single trip. We would also like to allow users to log in to save their passenger and trip information for future use. We believe these future features would further our goal of making learning about the solar system fun and interactive. This has been To the Moon and Back. I'd like to thank everybody for their time, and now I'd like to open up the floor to any questions or discussion.